I didn't have any of the skills that I have now. I was not self-aware enough to know what made me happy, nor did I have healthy coping skills to integrate into my daily life. Instead, I adapted negative coping skills, and self-harm was one of them. And I think a lot of the time we take emotional intelligence for granted, and even as an adult, I'm still struggling with this. And all of these kids who don't know how to self-regulate grow up into adults who don't know how to self-regulate or have empathy, intention, motivation, or boundaries even. And we're going to talk about feelings and emotions. Like, I know like some people think, oh my gosh, I don't want to talk about that foo-foo stuff, but unless we do, we can't grow. We can't help each other. You know, we have to talk about our feelings and our emotions. I'm going to touch a little bit on children, just a little bit. And it's important to note that they don't have the vocabulary to talk about emotions and feelings, and oftentimes for children, communicating emotions and feelings comes out in behaviors. And so it's important to look at what is really happening. There's a root. It's oftentimes not what you first see. It's something deeper. And they're often not unable to pinpoint or explain what it is, and they need help and support to process and deal with that. I also like to just take a moment to say something about vulnerability. There's an aspect of safety, and you can't always be vulnerable if you don't feel safe or your body is in fight, flight, or freeze. It's a privilege. Just like right now, like I think there was a moment or a time when I wasn't able to share my story, and now that I am, I feel like it's a privilege and a responsibility for me to do so, so that I can help other people get on the other side too. And so there's going to be some questions I'll ask, and if you want, you can grab something to write with and jot it down, but if not, just think about it in your head. That's fine, and that's enough as well. So what does it mean to have a mental health condition? It means that a person has difficulties with identifying and controlling their feelings, thoughts, reality, and or perception, and it affects their ability to understand others socially and function. So and it's important to note that people with serious mental illness only account for about 3 to 5% of all violent acts. Here's some signs of poor mental health in adults and adolescents. So excessive worrying or fear, feeling excessively sad or low, confused thinking or problems concentrating and learning, mood changes or strong feelings of irritability or anger, avoiding friends and social activities, changes in sleeping habits or feeling tired and low energy, changing in eating habits, abuse of substances, multiple physical ailments without obvious causes, so like headaches, stomach aches, etc., thinking about running away, quitting, or even suicide, and also low performance, inability to carry out daily activities. And then that leads me to anxiety. What is anxiety? So we all experience anxiety. For example, speaking in front of a group can make us anxious. Like doing this now was making me a little bit anxious, and I think that's just because my stress bucket was just overflowing a little bit from dealing with the stress of the hurricane. Driving in heavy traffic is another common source of anxiety, but it helps keep us alert and cautious to avoid accidents. Just like me feeling anxious about the hurricane, it caused me to act. I boarded up my windows. I made sure nothing was outside. Granted, the hurricane didn't come, but better safe than sorry. And if it did come, I was ready and prepared. But feelings of intense fear and distress become overwhelming and prevent us from doing everyday activities. An anxiety disorder may be the cause. So they are the most common mental health concern in the United States, and over 40 million adults in the US have an anxiety disorder. I took this all from NAMI.org. And so there's like usually a group of related conditions. So just because I have anxiety doesn't mean that I experience it in the same way that another person does. Everybody experiences their mental health conditions differently. Here are some emotional symptoms. So feelings of apprehension or dread, feeling tense or jumpy, restlessness or irritability, anticipating the worst and being watchful for signs of danger. Physical symptoms is pounding or racing heart and shortness of breath, sweating, tremors and twitches, headaches, fatigue, insomnia, upset stomach, frequent urination or diarrhea. There's about 4 types of anxiety disorder. So you have generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, panic disorder, and then people have phobias as well. For me, growing up, it also looked like I had headaches. I was in the nurse's office all the time. She knew me by name. Tummy aches. A couple of times I broke out in hives, biting my nails, rocking and shaking my leg. I'm kind of doing that a little bit now. I used to grind my teeth and like clench my jaw. Actually, I'm still working on that behavior. And lots of other behaviors that I'm still learning about and trying to fix. So before this presentation, I had a little bit of shaky hands, a little bit of nausea. Sometimes I feel like I can't catch my breath. Before this one, I was doing some breathing, so I was focusing on my breath, so I was okay. But I could feel my heart. Now it's not as bad, but for some reason, right before, it's just like feels like it's jumping out of my neck, or actually chest, even though I'm feeling it here. So here's the stress bucket that I was talking about. So this is an overflowing bucket of water. So you put stuff in, so you have family stress, work, trigger, whatever it is, financing, lack of sleep. But you got to put other things on there, faucets, to let some of the water out. So it could be sleep, exercise, or seeing food as medicine. And if your bucket starts to overflow, you risk getting sick, injury, depression, or mental health conditions. I also made one for what it looks like for children. So going in their bucket could be like mom and dad are yelling. It will be my turn to read aloud soon in class. My sister is being mean to me. And oftentimes they need adults to help support them and help them regulate in order to empty their bucket. If a child's bucket overflows, you risk tantrums, crying uncontrollably, name calling, hitting, kicking, destroying of objects, throwing things, etc. So emotional intelligence I look at as a starting point for managing my anxiety. If you don't already have an understanding or knowledge of something, we have to start at the beginning, and we have to build the foundation of pathways for your skills to grow. And you don't learn to walk by just walking, you got to crawl first, right? So we got to start at the very beginning. And that's why we talk about emotions and we start from the bottom with all our skills. You have to make it easy for yourself in the beginning so it can become a pattern. You're building foundations for neural pathways to grow. If it's not easy to do, it's too hard to do. I have that issue all the time. If I don't make things easy for myself, my brain makes it too hard to do. And all of these skills take practice, and I know all of this firsthand. And each of these components help me to manage my anxiety. So what is emotional intelligence? It means you're able to identify, evaluate, control, communicate, and express emotions in a healthy way. It gives you the ability to understand and use feelings, to work through challenges, communicate with others, and make decisions. People with a high level of emotional intelligence have better leadership skills, communication, collaboration, etc. So the first component I'll talk about is intention. But this can also be seen as prayer too. So why do teachers give an objective for a lesson? So you know what to be looking for. Our brains are wired to look for patterns. So when we give ourselves an intention, we'll be looking for ways to make it a success. So it's like we're already teaching ourselves a lesson and we get to choose how to learn it. They can be very powerful. You can set an intention on almost anything. It can be short or really long, but you get to decide how you want to play it. So these are some things that you can set intentions for. Your day, how you're going to relax, how to do nothing. Sometimes I'll just set the intention like, I'm going to do nothing. And that's simple and that's all I need. But I've set that intention, I've set that goal for myself. And also it's something I can keep coming back to. Because oftentimes my brain wants to get distracted and think, oh, I'm going to do this and this and this. And then I can remind myself, nope, I set the intention that I'm going to do nothing right now. So it can keep me on task. So here are some intentions on the right side. So today I will work on my negative thoughts. At this semester of school, I will do all of the required readings. I will relax by sitting in the hammock, listening to the birds, and reading a book. You might hear yourself start to ask, why am I doing this? But everything you do, and then everything you do starts to center around intention. So you're not doing anything for no reason. Everything has a reason. Which leads me to motivation. So that gives you a sense of what is important in life for you, and it's different for everyone. Knowing what your whys are, what motivates you, keeps you fueled, and gives you purpose. They help us to keep pushing forward and to meet our goals. And you move forward when you know the why behind your goals. It's a stronger foundation to push from. This also is good for kids too, because if you give them the reason why they're doing something, they're more likely to do it instead of just telling them, like giving them a command. You say, no, can you do this? So da 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 da. And just like you are always changing, so are your goals. So keep reassessing or reflecting on them. Look at what is working and what isn't, and then reassess your goals accordingly. So some things to think about with this is, why are you here? What do you hope to do for your community? How do you see yourself growing? And what do you hope to develop in yourself? I kind of talked about this already, setting an intention when I'm sitting down to work. Sometimes I want to go and I want to pick up my phone, and when I go to do it, then I remind myself, nope, that's not what my intention is right now. My intention is to sit at my computer and finish the project that I was working on. So just having something to keep coming back to. Sometimes I'll write it down, so it's just right there and in my face, and it just helps me to stay on path. And motivation gives me the momentum needed to continue, looking at why I'm doing the current task. What is the short-term goal and what's the long-term goal? Sometimes they're the same and sometimes they're different. So I'm working at this job to pay for college. I'm doing this task for this reason. I'm meditating so I can help myself regulate. I'm doing this to get a paycheck. The paycheck is to longer-term goal. The next component is self-awareness and behaviors. So having self-awareness means having an awareness of your emotions, behaviors, and feelings. Knowing what your strengths, weaknesses, joys, and triggers are. Knowing who you are and how you react and see the world around you. So if you know what your triggers are, the things that make you happy, sad, excited, you can properly plan. You also are aware of how your mood can affect the people around you. Your brain is looking for patterns. The first step to changing any behavior is to become aware. And by becoming aware, then you've already changed that behavior. At first, you only catch yourself doing it, and that's okay, because first you just want to notice it, and then you keep going, and pretty soon you'll be able to change that behavior. Maybe not every single time, but more and more you'll be able to change it. It's really hard. It takes a lot of time and energy, but it's worth it. So emotions, they tell us why something is important, and then they tell us to act. They serve a purpose, but oftentimes we're just reacting and on autopilot on a lot of behaviors. Emotions do not cause behaviors. They can provide motivation and cause physiological reactions, but they do not cause behaviors. We have free will. They cannot be controlled, but they can be regulated. And with awareness, we can stop the behaviors. We have to stop reacting and start responding. And I think a lot of the time it's important to remember that feelings are a normal human experience. And oftentimes the problem is external. It's not you. And remember, you're having a normal reaction, and other people in your shoes may feel the same too. They're meant to be felt, and they're used to make decisions, but they are not supposed to make decisions for you. And they'll run us if we let them. So as you're watching this video, I love Inside Out. I think it's a great movie for teaching emotions, even to adults. As you're watching this video, think about the emotions in terms of self-awareness. Is the awareness there? What are the signs of the current emotions? How could the child self-regulate? And do you notice right away when you're in these emotions yourself? So my volume on my computer is going to be all the way up. So if you can't hear, try turning up your own volume on the computer. So she was talking about sadness. She doesn't quite know what sadness is good for, but we'll find out a little bit later what sadness is good for. And it's important to note, so some of the people you see in crisis, or if you're in crisis yourself, you may be stuck in your own emotions, and sometimes you might need help identifying what it is you're feeling. You know, there's a lot of times when I like feel all these feelings inside of me, but I can't quite identify it, and it gets frustrating because until I identify it, I don't feel like I can process it yet. So there are so many different feelings. I'll send this later as a PDF, the feeling wheel, so you guys have it. This can really help. So maybe I can pinpoint, I'm feeling sad, and then I can go in deeper and okay, what kind of sad do I feel? Do I feel ashamed? Do I feel guilty or lonely? And then I can go one step more. Maybe I feel ashamed, and so then I feel stupid. And then I can kind of work from there on processing that emotion or feeling. So because my mom is diagnosed with bipolar disorder, oftentimes she'll get upset with me for things. And if she's coming at me, yelling at me, when I was younger, then I would defend myself, and I would come back at her, and we'd be stuck here on this path and just back and forth, back and forth. But when I learned to start to realize, oh, I'm mad right now, and take a breath, and then I can react from a different place than I was reacting before. Then I can react from someplace down here. She might still be up here, but sooner or later she has to come and meet me. If I can control my emotions and keep myself down here. It's not easy. It's very difficult, especially with people who you are very, very close to, because a lot of the times the things that they're saying, they weigh heavy on you. So it's very challenging and difficult to keep yourself in check. But it's worth it, because it becomes like magic. You know, again, pretty soon she has to meet me there, and I make changes, and pretty soon she starts to make changes too. It's really wild to see how it happens. So can you notice when you are mad, and does it take a second, or do you notice right away? And what are some signs or behaviors you have when you are mad? Usually when I start to get mad, and like I notice myself like clenching my jaw or my fist maybe, and I feel like this, like, I don't know exactly how to say it, except for it's like a rising sensation of anger in my body. I like to try to see where I'm feeling different emotions in my body, because even now my body will trick me, or I think I'm okay in my head, but my body might feel differently. I'm like, feel like I totally have things under control, and then I'm throwing up from anxiety. It's very interesting, and I've realized that I can't just pay attention to what my mind is thinking. I have to be aware of my body as well. And again, remember, the first thing is to just notice and become aware of the behavior. So I'd like you just to think about this in your head. You know, choose a behavior that you would like to change. That could be like, for me right now, I'm noticing I'm saying a lot of ums in this presentation. I'm stumbling and mumbling my words a little bit, but that's all behaviors, again, that I'm working on and that come out when I'm feeling a little bit anxious. But I've already set the intention to notice that behavior. So choose a behavior for yourself. Set an intention to notice it. What does it look like? When have you done it before? And include as many details as you can about the behavior to help yourself find the pattern and notice the behavior. And then you watch yourself soon start to notice, and just notice. So right now I'm just noticing. I'm not able to change it yet. And this part can be very frustrating, or like for me too, it's my posture I've been working on, which also is very frustrating because I'm catching myself not being in the correct posture at least 50 times a day, at least 50. And to catch yourself doing something so much is exhausting. So again, it takes energy, it takes time, and it takes work. But I notice that I'm not doing it as much as I was before. I'm catching myself more, and now I'm able to change it, and I can go and fix my shoulders and my posture. And keep readjusting your pattern by when you notice and what exactly you're noticing. And pretty soon you can stop it. Then you reassess some more, and pretty soon you can change it. So I use this with every single behavior. My mumbling of words, my ums, my clenching of my jaw, my grinding of my teeth. It's funny, I went to the dentist and he told me I had been grinding my teeth, and I was like, no, I'm not grinding my teeth. What are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, you're grinding them. So then I remember I went home and I set the intention that I was going to notice that behavior. And then I started waking up in the middle of the night every time I was grinding my teeth. And then I could stop it. But it was really interesting that I was so unaware. I had no idea that I was doing it, that I couldn't believe the dentist was telling me that I was doing it. And then as soon as I set the intention, I could catch myself doing it. It was very, that was my first kind of breakthrough in noticing how I could change my behaviors and how unaware I was to a lot of them too. So empathy and connection is the next component. Practicing empathy means having an understanding of the emotions of others. You allow yourself to stop judging and start understanding. You listen without the intent to respond. You watch body movements, verbal cues, gestures, and use all of that to understand what that person is feeling. Empathy leads to compassion, which then motivates us to help. And empathy from others fuels recovery and decreases stress. If it helps a lot to have a friend that understands how to be empathetic in my own recovery. So this is another video. This is my favorite video by Brene Brown on empathy, and it explains it so well.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Anisa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, I'm down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us. It's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
That's my favorite video. I think it shows empathy so well. This is the next video. So some of you might have seen this video. I know a lot of HR has been showing it. across the island. But it's called It's Not About the Nail. It's pretty quick.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me. And I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head. And it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. You do have a nail in your head.
It's not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Come on. If you would just
Don't.
try to see things.
So that's another thing. A lot of the times as humans, we want to fix things, right? We want to give our advice and our opinions and fix things. But a lot of the time, as we probably know with our own feelings, is we don't want somebody to fix it. We want somebody to just meet us right where we are and validate us and be with us in that emotion. And it's really hard because, again, like Brene said, you have to touch on that place that's inside of you. And a lot of the times we don't want to go there because we haven't dealt with our own stuff. And because we haven't dealt with our own stuff, we don't have any space for anybody else's. We don't have a space for a child. We don't have a space for another friend. We can't deal with our own. So, you know, think about also, what do you need from someone else when you're having anxiety or feeling stressed? You know, talk to them about it when you are calm. So many times I'd be having an anxiety attack with my husband, and he just tried to fix it, right? He's just throwing stuff at me, trying to fix it. And finally, I had a conversation with him when I was calm and not having an anxiety attack. And I said, you know, sometimes I just need you to just listen and to validate my emotions and let me feel like I'm heard. And after we had that conversation, he still tries to fix it every once in a while, but for the most part, he is there and he validates me and he makes me feel heard. But I stated my needs and I asked for what I wanted. So this looks like also sitting with your friends as they cry, listening to your coworker talk about their loved one that just passed away, understanding that a child is sad when they are crying and making space for their emotions, listening to a loved one talk about the divorce, trauma, or move across this country, whatever it is that's bothering them. The next component is social skills or relationships. So these are the skills needed to handle and influence other people's emotions effectively. So smiling at other people and them smiling back. We have these like mirror neurons in our brains. That's why when you smile at a baby smiles back. My friend, she has a 2-month-old, and they come and spend the night with us sometimes on the weekends. And it's really amazing how as soon as you smile at that baby, it just smiles back at you, and how much eye contact means to it too. So these skills help us to build social connections effectively, to relate and find common ground, and to support other people through their difficult times. So you can improve social skills by learning active listening and the LEAP method. So when I started to implement these skills, I was leading by example. Pretty soon, my mom had to meet me here, and also other family members as well. So here's how to participate in active listening. Pay attention, ask open-ended questions, not yes or no. What can I do right now to support you? Reflect feelings and emotions back. I have some examples on the next slide. Ask for clarification if you don't understand something. What did you mean when you said this here? Can you restate that again? And then restate and paraphrase for understanding back to them, and summarize as well. That makes people feel like you were listening. If you're able to summarize, okay, so I heard you saying this, this, and this, then it's like, oh, you were listening to what I was saying. And listen without the intent to respond. That's so important. I catch myself listening with the intent to respond all the time. Somebody is talking and I'm already want to say something. It takes a lot of work to like settle myself and try to listen without the intent to respond, with just the intent to listen. And again, often as humans, we try to fix things. People need their emotions validated just like we do. Sometimes just a simple, that sounds hard, I am here, is more than enough. I mean, that's most of the time, that's all I need. When I'm needing somebody to listen to my feelings and what's happening, just somebody to tell me that, wow, that seems really difficult and I'm here. That's like treasure for me in those moments. So here's some examples of active listening. A restatement: I spilled coffee on my white sweater on the way out the door and had to go and change, and then I couldn't find my keys. The kid next door was playing the drums. So restating that back: I hear you saying that you had a hard morning and nothing went your way. Reflection looks like: my boss is suspending me for something that isn't my fault. I can see that you are feeling frustrated. Here's some active listening for somebody that might be in crisis. Restatement: I stopped taking my medications because they weren't working. I felt like I was losing myself and they were taking over. I hear you saying you stopped taking your medication because it wasn't working. So even a restatement doesn't mean that you have to agree with what they're saying. You're just restating what they're saying back to them and making them feel heard and validated. Reflection: I can hear the signals they are sending about me. They are targeting me. They want my blood. What am I going to do? And then a reflection is: I can hear you are scared. So you're just reflecting their emotion back onto them. Here, we're going to find out what sadness is for. So as you're watching this video, pay attention to the differences between joy and sadness. Is Joy listening? Does she have an ulterior motive? And how would you normally respond to something like this? What makes him feel heard? And think about what things make you feel heard.
We love our new home.
It's great. The HOA has...
It's going to play a commercial. I'm apologizing for this commercial. So that's what sadness is for. Sadness helps other people move through their sadness. As you can see, Joy was afraid to talk about the emotion that Bing Bong, I think that's his name. I can't remember right now. Joy was afraid to talk about the emotion that the pink elephant was talking about because she's afraid that it's going to make him more sad, when in fact usually that's not the case. When you talk about the emotions with somebody, it helps them to process it, to release some of it and let it go. It's, again, very hard to do because you have to go to that place of sadness within yourself, but it's way worth it. So boundaries. This is something that I am still learning, and it is so hard to apply in my life. So boundaries are rules or limits on how much you are willing to put up with, how people need to treat you to feel safe. It's like a line of human behavior, and on one side there's no emotional harm, but on the other side there is. They define who you are, protect your time and energy, give you moral guidelines, allow you to respect and care for yourself, set healthy limits in relationships, and make time and space for healthy interactions. There are different types of boundaries, so emotional, physical, time, mental, and spiritual. Here's some, a lot of us have unhealthy boundaries. I had so many unhealthy boundaries. It means that you disregard your own limits as well as others, and it often leads to many types of abusive relationships. So feeling like you can't say no or getting upset when others say no, that's an unhealthy boundary. Disrespecting others that don't align with your values, opinions, or beliefs. Codependency, feeling responsible for the actions, feelings, or happiness of others. I had a huge codependency problem with my brother. He suffers from substance abuse, and everything that he did, I was emotionally invested in. And so every time he would relapse or something, I would fall down too, because here I had no boundaries, and I invested myself in him financially, physically, emotionally, and then he would relapse, and then I felt like what I did wasn't enough, so I felt like I wasn't enough. So that's been really, really difficult for me to move through and to notice, okay, what does a healthy boundary look like? And applying them is a whole different story as well. We'll get into that a little bit. Feeling like you need to fix others, letting everyone know everything, and then also not noticing when someone violates your boundaries. Here are some more unhealthy boundaries. Over or under eating, letting another person define your reality and what you believe in, accepting something that you do not want, so food, gifts, etc. This was a big one for me. So my mom and my brother, we were always low income growing up, so we didn't really have money. So I think for my mom and my brother, the way that they show me love is like buying me gifts and giving me things, but oftentimes I don't want it, or it's too much. And so I was accepting these gifts, and then I was feeling guilty, or it was making me feel not good. And so it took me a while to first become aware of that was happening, that I was accepting these things that I didn't want, and then to communicate that with my brother and say, hey, listen, like, I know that you're buying me these things because you're thinking of me, but that's not how I want to receive love from you. I want you to show me love by getting your driver's license and getting a job and getting good grades at school, and, you know, all of these other things. Show me that you love me, basically. And at first he got really triggered. I really ticked him off, and he got defensive. But then afterwards, you know, it was really funny. Literally a week later, he texted me, Anisa, I just got my license. And I was able to be like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. I'm so happy for you. Good job. You know, so it was really difficult for me to put that boundary down. And also it was really hard to be consistent with it because, you know, as soon as he started to react, I have my codependency problem, and I wanted to then, you know, feel guilty and feel bad for making him feel bad. And I had to literally like tell myself, okay, that's not mine, that's his. And just even doing that with my hand, every time I felt it, it's not mine, that's my boundary, that's theirs. And it was able to help me move past and stick to my boundaries. Another unhealthy one, going against your personal values or rights to please others, fearing rejection if you do not comply with others, being very protective over your personal information, too protective, that's also unhealthy. And also being unable to ask for help, that's a huge one. That was really hard for me to be able to ask for help when I was having my anxiety attacks, like knowing to send a text message to a certain person if I was having an anxiety attack so that they can respond appropriately. It's really, really hard to do, but once I started to do it, then I could get my support and again move past the emotions I was feeling. If you do not have any boundaries, you are not emotionally healthy. Poor boundaries can lead to resentment, anger, and burnout. People who are emotionally healthy know what their boundaries are, how to speak their truth, and can clearly communicate their boundaries. They know what to do when someone steps over their boundaries as well. When people run over your boundaries, in a lot of ways, it can feel like a self-betrayal because you didn't stick up for yourself and say what you want. And like that happened with me. I felt like I was disrespecting myself and not being true to who I was. I was allowing these other people to treat me this way, or to put these beliefs or opinions or values on me that didn't feel like they were me. And boundaries are my space. They're your space, and how you want people to treat you within your space. Different relationships mean different boundaries. You might have different boundaries with your mom that you have with your coworker, etc. And just like you have boundaries, you need to be respectful that others do as well. So even if it is not a boundary that you would have. And again, when you're first setting down boundaries, you may feel guilty, etc., or others may be upset. And it's important to remember, it's not yours, that's theirs. I know it's easier said than done. It's very, very difficult, but it makes a huge difference. Here are some other types of boundaries. So a physical one would be like a friend goes through your purse or backpack, a friend that touches you all the time. An emotional one is I'm always asking my friend to do stuff with me, but the friend never goes out of their way for me, or they're a flaky friend. A friend keeps calling me a nickname that I don't like. You can have mental unhealthy boundaries. I tell myself I can't all the time. That's an unhealthy mental one. Some other examples: saying no, time boundaries, changing my mind, turning the ringer off my phone, walking away when someone is yelling, telling a friend you can't hang out, friends using words or language that offend you. That's a huge one. And so, again, these things are really hard to implement. So first, take a look at what you want your boundaries to be and what your values are, and then look and see who you need to start being more strict on. Who is coming into your space in a unhealthy way. If other people have weak boundaries, it will be hard for them to respect yours. Very, very hard. And it's important to speak up. I need to let you know that your actions and words hurt me, and then talk about it. Here are some examples of clear boundaries. If you keep talking badly about my friend, da 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 da. If you don't let me know ahead of time, I won't be able to do it. Please don't expect me to respond to your 10 texts a day. I will respond when I can. Please don't call me after blank time. I need that time for me. I understand you are upset, but please don't shout at me. I will have to walk away. Clear communication is so, so important. You have to make sure your lines have clear borders, because otherwise, you can't get mad at people for crossing your boundaries if you have not clearly stated them to them. So it's very important to be clear in your communication when setting boundaries. And then also, don't use you statements, use I statements. So instead of, you have to stop bothering me when I get home from work, try, I need some time to myself to decompress when I finish working. When you express your boundary that way, again, it's not about the other person. It's about yourself and what you need there, and how they react, then that's their stuff, not yours. So just like you did with the behavior, think about a boundary you haven't been keeping but should. What is it? Who is this boundary for? Is it for your coworkers? Would it be for your friends? A certain family member? Who are these boundaries for? How can you clearly state that boundary? What is your clear line with clear borders, clear communication? Have you ever clearly stated this boundary to other people? And who do you need to make it more clear to? Is there people that do it? You have friends that do adhere to your boundaries, but some friends that don't. I had that issue for some things. And what will you do if someone steps over this boundary? For me right now, that looks like just having a conversation with them and explaining to them why I have this boundary, and that it's important that they adhere to it for me. It's what I need in my own recovery. And what does stepping over this boundary look like? What does it look like when someone crosses it over? Again, it's important to have a clear picture of that. So this is something that you can use later as like a journal prompt if you want. I know I'm going through a lot of information, but I'll send this to you as a PDF afterward so that you can use it as a resource. So this is like just thinking about what your boundaries are. Do you allow people to go through your stuff, your phone? What are your social media boundaries? What are your boundaries with your family? Are they healthy? What about your friends? Are all the boundaries you have healthy? Who often is overstepping your boundaries? And are you communicating them clearly with them? What do you do when someone oversteps your boundaries? How can you be clearer with your boundaries? Are you communicating them? Why or why not? Do you feel safe to have boundaries? That's another big one. There is a couple instances in my life where I didn't feel safe enough to have boundaries, and so I never spoke on them or spoke my truth, so to speak. And also think about, like, how can we maintain our own boundaries and still support others, especially at a time right now in a pandemic. It's, you know, a lot of people are having mental health problems, and it's been hard to figure out, you know, where are my boundaries up there, and how can I give space to them. One of my good friends, she was having a problem yesterday, just relationship problem with the hurricane, and just needed somebody to talk to. And one of the things that she does that I really appreciate is she'll text me first and say, hey, do you have the space for me? Or do you have, are you feeling emotionally healthy to talk to me right now in my state of crisis? You know, she knows that she's in crisis and she needs somebody, but she also doesn't want to overstep my boundaries or overfill my stress bucket. And that makes a big difference and means a lot to me. Some other examples of boundaries: amount of PDA, social media, sticking to your budget, coffee limit, making sure you go to sleep at a certain time, not participating in gossip, changing your mind, turning the ringer off on your phone. There's lots of different examples of boundaries. You just have to figure out what yours are, and then look at why they're there, and be clear again on communicating them. I'd like you just to think about all the things that you do for self-care, even if it has been a while. What do you do? Do you take a bath? Do you go fishing? Do you surf? Do you go for a walk? What things do you do for self-care? And then think about, what's the difference between self-care and self-maintenance? Do you know what the difference is? So self-care activities are things you do to care for yourself when you have time, and self-maintenance activities are things you do to maintain your current state of mental health. So again, think about your list of things that you're doing for self-care, and then go back and reframe the ones you should be doing for self-maintenance instead of self-care. I often get these things confused in my head, and it's important for me to write it down and to know what I have to do for self-maintenance, because I have to keep myself, it's this like balancing act, that if I start to get up a little bit too much, it's really easy to tip me over. And so I incorporate coping skills or self-regulation skills into my day every day to keep myself just leveled, so that I don't end up just a little bit here, because I don't want to tip over. I've done that way too many times. Self-regulation is managing your own emotions effectively, staying in control, and redirecting negative emotions, adapting. Leaders who are able to self-regulate are less likely to verbally attack someone or make decisions solely based upon emotions. If you're unable to self-regulate and you are in a high-stress environment, how will you react? However your emotions tell you to. That's why we need to learn how to self-regulate. And it's important to note, too, that having self-control does not mean masking or hiding your emotions. That's not what self-control is. Sometimes regulation means going into that emotion in a healthy way, giving yourself permission to feel it without judgment, but with understanding, letting it surface and asking yourself what you need and going there and loving yourself through it, which is very, very difficult. Again, easier said than done. I know I touched a bit on making space, but if we don't make space for our own emotions, how do we expect ourselves to have space for a child or someone in crisis? We need to make space for their emotions to exist, and that means also dealing with our own. If you are mad, that means you end up being less patient and you don't have any room for a child or anyone to be sad or mad. And if you don't address a child's emotions and tell them to get over it or calm down, sometimes that can escalate them. Actually, telling anyone to calm down in a crisis does not help. It actually triggers them. You know, when I'm having an anxiety attack, I am trying my hardest to calm down. And so when somebody tells me to calm down, it just frustrates me more because I'm already trying to do that and I can't. I need some support. I need some help. And it can be very frustrating when the person with me doesn't see that. They don't see that I'm trying. So this one is also a very interesting one. Again, we're at Inside Out. While joy and sadness are lost in other parts of the mind, fear, anger, and disgust are in a state of panic, an appropriate depiction of what can happen during a traumatic experience or a major life event to children and adults alike. So also having an anxiety attack. Such memories can actually require more time to identify mixed emotions, process the experience, and store a memory. Sometimes we must go through a myriad of emotions until we land in a place of resolution where we properly associate the memory. So look at the tone of voice, the body language, etc. What emotions are at the wheel? How does it escalate? Who escalates it? Who's actually in control? Is there any self-regulation happening? And then at the end, is that the conclusion that was wanted? And what could have been done differently?
Did you know Geico is now offering an extra?
It's going to play another commercial. Good thing they're only 15 seconds. The Geico ones are getting... So if you noticed, there are a lot of things going wrong in there. Nobody seems to be self-regulating. I don't think that was the conclusion that anybody wanted. And there was lots of things that could have been done differently. I don't know if you noticed, but, you know, tone of voice can do so much and can trigger people in so many different ways. You know, she said, school was great, all right, you know, but if she would have said it differently, like, you know, school was great, all right, it wouldn't have come off the way that it came. Also, go to your room versus go to your room. Those are two different things, and they make the other person feel two different things as well. So I like you to think about, what do you do to self-regulate on the job? Do you notice when you are mad or upset when you have been triggered? And if so, what do you do? Do you take a moment and breathe, or do you hold on to that emotion? How does it come out to your clients, colleagues, peers that you're working with? And then also, it's okay to tell kids that you're feeling sad or stressed. I think it's important to start normalizing that it's okay to be sad and still go about your day or process. I had my little cousins, they're 7 and 9, at home during the beginning of the pandemic. When I was trying to figure out how to work from home and trying to help them deal with homeschooling at the same time. And, you know, I just tell them, you know, I'm feeling really stressed out right now. And you know, they understand, they get it. And sometimes they tell me, okay, let's do some yoga together, or let's do this together. And it would help me to release it. Or, you know, kids, they can understand as long as you talk to them at their level and use the appropriate vocabulary. What are coping skills? So we all develop defense mechanisms to avoid or lessen psychological pain. Coping skills are ways in which we learn to deal with various stressors, and each person copes with stress differently. Negative coping means you use quick fixes that may make a situation worse in the long run. So things like self-harm, drug and alcohol abuse, avoiding others, anger and violent behavior, gambling, shopping, dangerous behaviors, working too much, avoidance of activities, overeating, undereating, biting fingernails, etc. So think about your negative coping skills. What are they? I'm sure that you have them. We all have negative coping skills. Why are they there? What do they provide relief from? You know, we all have negative coping skills because they give us relief from something. And what kind of relief does it provide? When you look at that, then you can take a look and see what kind of healthy coping skill you should put in place of the negative one. Also, the reliance on a negative coping skill can then cause the person to feel bad about him or herself, which can strengthen the negative mood, resulting in even more of the negative coping behavior. When a child is having a tantrum, you do not teach them coping skills. They are not ready to learn. You teach coping skills to them every day as a preventative measure and to integrate into their daily lives. It's the same with adults. You know, don't teach me a coping skill when I'm having an anxiety attack. You know, I can't learn one. And when you do teach it to them every day, though, it will be less likely that they get to the tantrum stage. And when they are there, you can help to calm them down a lot faster with the proper coping skills. They will already have been exposed, and they may even be able to calm themselves down because they will know how to do it. It's the same with us as adults. If we already are practicing these coping skills, it'll be much easier for us to use them when we need them. So now I'm going to go into some coping skills, some things that I use. I do this, we teach crisis intervention training. It's a 40-hour course. We partner with HPD, the police department, and other community organizations. I do the health and wellness portion, and I make all the police officers do these breaths with me. And they seem silly and funny, but they work, and I guarantee you will remember them. And things like this need to be easy to remember, because again, if it's not easy in our brains, it's too hard to do. So the first one is a flower breath. So you imagine that you're holding a flower. Take a deep breath in, and then you're going to blow out the candle. That's it. Very easy and very simple. A lot of people, they go through their whole day and don't even take a deep breath, right? So we need to find moments in our day to take breaths. The next one is a cat hiss. So take a deep breath in and hiss like a cat out. That one usually, when I do it in a room full of people, everybody ends up laughing. And again, these things, they get us out of our heads and into our bodies and into the present moment. Because anxiety is we're too far in the future, and so we need to be brought present. The next one is a bear breath. Okay, hold it in and then release. Very simple, very easy. These are great for kids as well. Oftentimes when a kid is having a tantrum, if you have like a 3-year-old or younger, they can't communicate. But if they already know what these breaths are, you can show them pictures, and then they can just point to which breath they want to do, and then you can start doing it with them. And because we have these mirror neurons, pretty soon they start breathing with you. The next one is a bunny breath. So 3 sniffs in and 1 out. Very easy, very simple. The cat hisses I like to use when I'm feeling angry or upset. The bear breath when I have some like angst or emotion that I just need to like help with. Flower breath is when I need to just relax and be calm. And the bunny breath, that one helps me to just like get me a little bit present. But oftentimes I'll take like a minute and just do all of them. And they all react in myself differently. They all do different things to my state. Yoga or stretching is another one. I didn't know what yoga was. I thought it was for rich people. I mean, I had no idea what it was for. And then I started to learn a little bit more, and I realized it's just a relationship with my body. It's just about stretching. Oftentimes, we get stressed out or scared, and what do? We hold our breath and we clench our muscles, right? So if we don't check back in with our body, it's 10 years down the road and we have a cold shoulder or a hurt neck. And again, for me, sometimes I think I'm okay in my mind, but my body is saying otherwise. So usually if that's the case, if I'm throwing up, because usually my anxiety attacks comes up in me throwing up. If I'm throwing up and I can't figure out why and I feel fine in my head, then I'll go into my body and try and do some stretches, because it's not in my head, it's somewhere in my body. And again, we just want to get out of our heads and back into our bodies. The next one is EFT, or emotional freedom technique, or tapping. So the with the process of tapping, it's emotions are breadcrumbs. You're never wrong in what you're feeling. There's always a reason, and you just have to find it. So with tapping, you're naming the emotion. You have this phrase here: even though I have this problem, I deeply and completely accept myself. So you're loving and accepting yourself through it and processing it. And we can't grow or move past where we are until we love and accept ourselves right where we are, which for a lot of people, that's very difficult to do. It's very difficult to love and accept that this is stressing you out, or this is making you anxious, or whatever the case may be. Also, you're tapping on your acupressure points. And again, out of your head and back into your body. So real quick, I'll just show you, I don't know if I'm like the little screen there, but I'll just show you the different places to tap. So the karate chop is just like this. Do it with me if you want, just so you have a little bit of an exposure to it. The next one is on top of your head. And then you got in between your eyes, under your nose, on your chin, your collarbones here, and then under your armpit. And actually, I was doing this before the presentation, and it helped me a lot. And you don't just do these things when you're feeling stressed out. It's not going to work if you're only using them when you're feeling stressed out. You have to create other moments that you're practicing them. So your brain, knows, oh, this is what I do when I relax. You're creating those pathways, making those patterns and routines for yourself. So what this looks like, saying the phrase. So before this presentation, I was saying, even though I feel anxious, I deeply and completely accept myself. Sometimes I'll close my eyes, sometimes I'll keep them open. Even though I'm feeling anxious, I deeply and completely accept myself. The other piece to this is usually I'll rate myself before and after, and usually I'm at like an 8 or 9, and I could come down to like maybe a 5 or 6, which doesn't seem like much, but in terms of anxiety, it feels a lot differently. So I find lots of help with this, and I'll do it when I'm sitting in traffic if I'm feeling anxious, sometimes at the doctor's office, just whenever I feel like I need it. If I'm about to go into a meeting, sometimes I'll just take a second to do it. And again, these things don't have to take a long time, just short, simple, and sweet. There's a huge difference between knowing a skill and being able to apply it. That's why we need to practice. Again, so our brains know, oh, this is what I do when I relax. We have to create those pathways. When a child's having a tantrum, it is not the time to teach them coping skills. Their brains are not ready to learn. It's the same with adults. When you're having an anxiety attack, when you're feeling anxious, that's not the time to learn these coping skills. You have to set out different times to apply them in your life. And it's better to do them for a few minutes. So even just 2 to 5 minutes every day. So I'm just stretching for 1 minute, and then maybe I'm breathing for the next, doing every day instead of one chunk of time every week. 2 to 5 minutes a day versus an hour a week can make a big difference, because you want to create a pattern, and you want to keep practicing. And practice and repetition is key. It should be normal to integrate coping skills into our lives, not only using them when we're feeling stressed out. Another one that helps me tremendously is making lists. A lot of times I have like a racing mind. That's also why I stumble on my words, I think, because my mind is way more ahead than my words, and I have a hard time syncing them up. So when I make lists, it feels like it takes things out of my head and puts them on the paper. And if my brain still wants to obsess over it, I just kindly remind it that I have it written down and I can let that go. Now, I might have to remind myself a lot, but it helps. It helps. And then also checking things off the list, it's a nice little dopamine hit, and we're celebrating all the little wins. So even if I've done something and it's not on my list, oftentimes I'll write it on there and check it off just to get that dopamine hit and make me feel better. And again, so all of these things that I'm telling you, they're not going to work every single time. They're not. But, you know, we're supposed to have this little like toolkit, right? That we keep putting stuff in that we learn, and we take something out, we try it. If it doesn't work, that's okay. Put it back, choose another one, you know, and keep going till it feels right. And just keep exposing yourself to different things and trying out different things, and you'll see what will work for different stressors or triggers that happen. Talking with yourself in third person. I do this all the time. So you get yourself unstuck from rumination by breaking up your thoughts. It's actually an ancient rhetorical method used by Julius Caesar. It's called, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Iliism. So it means speaking about yourself in third person. So, okay, Anisa, I understand you're feeling nervous, but let's try some breathing. Or why do you feel that way, Anisa? Dig deeper. I don't know, during the hurricane, as preparation was happening, I was talking to myself in third person the whole time, because if I don't, then I'm stuck in my rumination, right? My racing thoughts. But I can start to break it up when I speak to myself in third person. It feels really silly, but it's very, very helpful. Take a time out when you need it. Oftentimes we can recognize when we are anxious, but then we don't do anything about it. You know, I'll still continue to do what I'm doing. Like, I just feel like I need to go, 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 and I feel like I can't stop. But when I take the time to stop and do some breathing or do some stretching or whatever it is it may be, it's like all of a sudden I'm a different person, because I'm coming from a different place than I was before. So yeah, do something. Take some breaths. Google grounding exercises. There's lots of guided meditations on YouTube for free. Give yourself permission to have that time out. It's very, very difficult to give yourself that permission, but again, worth it and works. Eat a healthy diet. Incorporate food that isn't processed into your diet. Food can be medicine if done with intention. So we just had a workshop on Saturday on probiotics, and I eat a lot of probiotics. I like natto so much. I eat it maybe 3 to 4 times a week. And then I try to make my own sauerkraut once or twice. It didn't really come out right. I got to try a new strategy. But you know, there's lots of things that you can do for probiotics. You don't have to buy them at the store. You can make your own at home, kombucha, sauerkraut, whatever. But you have this other brain here in your gut, and what you put in there affects what you feel like. And sometimes for me too, just eating can make a big difference, but not eating just like junk food, but eating a good meal can make me feel so much better. Oftentimes I'll like feel anxious or impatient or mad, and I realize, oh, I'm really just hangry right now. I need to go and eat something. I notice that in kids so much. My little cousin, she just starts to get like just this little fireball, little firecracker, and I realize, oh, you haven't eaten anything yet. That's why you're like this. And I feed her, and she's like a different person. Sleep. So creating a routine for sleeping can make a huge difference. I had a really hard time falling asleep, where I would be up for hours, like literally hours. I used to take, when I lived on the mainland for a little while, I didn't have health insurance, and so I took Benadryl to help me sleep, and I would take a lot of Benadryl, and it still wouldn't work. My hyper awareness was just stuck on, and I couldn't turn off. So I had to create a routine or a pattern, you know, go in my room or take a shower, and I'll go to my room. I sleep with a sound machine. It's really, really helpful because, again, I'm like hyper aware, hyper alert. So it just helps to shut out that background noise. We have roosters here too, so that does not help me. So I have a sound machine. And then I commit to reading at least 5 pages. I can read more if I want, but I need to read at least 5 pages. And just doing those things has helped to ingrain in my brain, like, okay, this is what I do when I fall asleep. And it's made a huge difference. So I can fall asleep now pretty easily, but staying asleep is now my issue, and I'm trying to figure out how to change that behavior. And remind yourself that you don't need to be perfect, and just do your best. This often, people with anxiety, they have a need or want to be perfect, and everything needs to be perfect. But this has been a very difficult thing for me, but I had to just accept, as long as I do my best, that's perfect for me. But I even struggle with that now still. Being patient. These behaviors and thought patterns will not go away overnight. Give yourself grace. Allow yourself to mess up and get it wrong. That's how you get it right. Sometimes you got to keep getting it wrong in order to get it right. Don't push yourself, and meet yourself right where you are. Don't give yourself expectations that you can't meet yet. When you give yourself a goal, make sure that you can get there. For me, it's just about little promises every day, little steps that are really giant ones. So sometimes for me, if there's like a bunch of stuff I have to do, I like to give myself choices. So tomorrow, maybe I'll give myself 3 different things that I need to do, because if I'm feeling anxious or overwhelmed, which I'm feeling a little bit right now, just because the hurricane, I think, kind of just tipped me a little bit. And again, I think that I'm okay for the most part in my head, but my body is showing me otherwise. So I'm trying to pay attention to that and give myself the rest and love that I need. So tomorrow there's like some things that I need to do, but I'll give myself 3 choices of things. And if I just do one, that's a celebration. That's enough for me. But if I get to all 3, that's a huge celebration. So breaking up things can really help, and being patient. Doing art, it builds your self-esteem, it fortifies your self-awareness, it develops your communication skills, makes socialization easier, and it fosters integrity. And I used to not want to do art because I've never been good at it, but I had to realize that just the act of doing it provides relief. So draw, color, create, whatever you need to do, just do something. Another thing I like to do is dream boards or vision boards. So just cutting out pictures or collages of things that are my goals that I want to reach, things that motivate me, intentions. I'll use words, and that's art. That's creating. That's doing. So another thing that I do sometimes is I'll write poetry, or I'll just write. So this is something that I wrote. Actually, I think this is like 2 years ago, right after I had had a panic attack. The pain it takes to see it through will leave behind the you that is true. Deep below all of that gook, you'll see yourself there. Just take a look. Go back to your body, all the places you once stood. That is what matters, not the shoulda, woulda, coulds. Back in your body, it's safe now to be. Places once locked up, you now hold the key. Shame, guilt, and anger can now be replaced. All those tears you cried were in fact not a waste. There's no talking of feelings, no reasoning at all. They should be felt with the heart like teardrops as they fall. So that really, I think, just is all of my hard work, It's just all the things that I realized that I needed to deal with and sort through to get to the other side. Okay, so now we've arrived at building your toolkit. So all the things that I'm going to talk about next, they're all things to contribute to your toolkit. And each toolkit is unique and different to the owner. We know ourselves the best, and so only we can build the proper toolkit for ourselves. It's important to take the time to put this together now, because often we're just reacting during an emotional crisis, and these things are far away from our thought patterns. It may feel like common knowledge to yourself now, but in those moments, that knowledge is out of reach. We need to make it easy for ourselves, and your future self will thank you. It's important to understand that not everything will work every time, and that's okay. Try something, and if it doesn't work, try another. Just keep going. You'll get through it. You do every time, and there's not been a time where you haven't. As always, prevention is key, and know the difference between self-care and self-maintenance, and make sure you're keeping up with each. So I'm not going to read all of these, but these are things that you can have if you want to put them in your toolkit later. So the first one is a love letter to yourself. You know, on the day when you have felt your worst, what would you have needed to hear? So a lot of the times when I'm having an anxiety attack, I'm telling myself all these not nice things in my head. It's helpful for me to have a love letter that I've already written out to myself so that I can remind myself that that's not what I think. That's just in the moment right now, and it will pass. The next one is a gratitude inventory. A lot of the times when we're feeling stressed or in crisis, we can't remember the things that we're feeling grateful for. All we see is red, and you feel no gratitude. So taking the time to make a list of the things that you are grateful for, so when you feel like that, you can go to that list and remind yourself. Catalog of triggers. So taking a look at what your triggers are, the things that make you sad, happy, nervous, anxious, scared. Are you aware of them when they're happening? And do you know about some of these triggers ahead of time? Because then you can plan for them and prepare for them. So these are some examples of triggers: family tension, arguments, shouting, breakups, financial problems, being criticized, power struggles, social gatherings, being alone, family dinners, being sick, shouting, loud noises, specific tastes, smells, sensations, noises, intoxicated people, maybe drunk people, driving, pregnant women, babies, interpersonal conflict, narcissism, rejection. There are lots of different triggers. It's helpful for me to see the list because it can help me to bring these things to awareness or think about them. The next piece could be an evacuation plan. So if you're triggered, what are you going to do? What do you think the best thing for yourself in a crisis would be? You're the only person who knows what is best for you. Spend some time now thinking about it and create a plan. Sometimes you may get triggered in a small way, but other times a trigger can send you into a crisis. Having a step-by-step plan of what to do if you are in crisis can help tremendously. If you feel comfortable enough, you can share it with your support system so that they can guide you and support you through your plan. This is what mine looks like. It's just an example, and yours can be totally different. Each one is unique to the individual. Having a favorites file, so a list of your favorite food, song, candy, beach, band, place, movie, restaurant, author, scent. These are all potential things to turn to when you're having a bad day. Having a list in front of you gives you a higher chance of using something from that list. That means a potentially de-stressed future you. Emotional toolkit can be something like what I have a box here, or it can be like a shoe box or something like that. But it can also be just a file in your phone, maybe of screenshots of your favorite things, or a note of all your triggers or something like that. It doesn't have to be something physical you can touch. It's helpful to have something physical you can touch, but if you're out and about, it also can be helpful to have it on your phone, or just like a little bag like this or something that says the essentials, where you just have small things in it. It can go in your purse or in your car or whatever. The next one is your support card. So having the name and phone number of someone you love, someone who makes you laugh, someone who always supports you, who gives you the best advice, anyone else who is special to you. I also put like the crisis text line on there, the National Suicide Prevention line, and the crisis line of Hawaii on there too. Sometimes too, I'll make a plan with the people on my support card list. I think it's important to let them know that they're on there. Like one of my friends, sometimes all I have to do is text her a period, and that'll let her know that I'm having a hard time, and she'll respond appropriately. So you can set up plans like that with your people on your support card. Because again, it is hard to ask for help when you're in those moments, but sometimes you can just send a letter or a number or a special character or something, and if that person knows what that is, then they can respond appropriately to you and help you through it. And then you can praise yourself afterwards for asking for help, because that's a really big step too. The next one is making a list of everything that you can control. Often in times of stress and crisis, we forget all the things that we have control of. So taking the time to give your future self a reminder of all the things that are within your control. So you can clean, you can control how you regulate, how you show up, what you're eating, exercise, washing your car, fishing, going for a drive, taking a shower, lifting weights, mowing the lawn, doing a puzzle, shaving, working on a car, the font in your paper you are writing, making art, seeing a movie, going to a sports game. These are all things that you can control. When I'm having anxiety, it feels like I don't have control of anything. So seeing all the things that I can have control of can remind me that there are things that I am in control of. Here are some ideas of other things that you can put in your toolkit. So this is like in correlation with a first aid kit. So like a Band-Aid would be something that's a quick and easy fix. Your white elephant, maybe you give yourself like a budget of $1, $5, or $10. Maybe it's that Starbucks coffee. It's that candy bar at the store. Or maybe it's a cookie or a piece of cake. But so even just having these things written down so that we can remember, okay, I'll try that right now. Again, the emergency card, that's the support card. Hand sanitizer, taking the time to know what your triggers are. Tweezers for plucking yourself out of the headspace that you're in. So grounding exercises, tapping, guided meditation. Advil or Tylenol, that's like internal medicine. So it could be Advil or Tylenol. Maybe you get headaches when you're feeling stressed out. Maybe it's the things that you are prescribed from your doctor for helping you with anxiety. Maybe it's a PRN that you're taking. Maybe it's an essential oil, a homeopathic thing that you like to take, but having that in there. Antibiotic ointment, so things you put on yourself to give you relief. I like this tiger balm that I have, feels good. I put it on my neck because usually I'll hold tension in my neck when I'm feeling stressed out. Putting on a fresh change of clothes or brushing your teeth, that can really help too. Taking a shower, jumping into the ocean. And these are some other things. So like just having it on a list that drinking a glass of water to give your system a kickstart or hydration. Again, when we're in moments of crisis, we can't find these things. So putting them down can help to remind our brains. You can put things in there that surround all of your senses. So touch, so silly putty, a crystal or a rock or a shell that you like to touch, a stress ball, something you can see. So something you enjoy looking at, a picture of your dog, a puppy, a picture of yourself or a family member, something to listen to. So a song that makes you happy or makes you want to move, or that reminds you of a time that you loved, or reminds you of someone you love, that always makes you smile, etc. Sometimes also recording yourself saying different affirmations. So like, you are smart, you are brave, you are beautiful. And then listening to that can help solidify things in your brain. Smell, so maybe it's dried herbs, so rosemary, basil, sage. Maybe it's a flower like plumeria or gardenia or rose. Maybe it's a piece of Palo Santo wood. Taste, so something that makes you smile when you eat it or taste it. So it can be candy or chocolate, your favorite snack, chips, nuts, a drink that you enjoy, your favorite cheese, ice cream. Also, brushing your teeth can change the way you're sensing things in your mouth, or swishing around some mouthwash, or chewing some gum, or drinking a glass of water. These are a list of different grounding exercises. Most of these you can Google, or we've went through. So the different breathing, putting your hands in water can help ground you. Picking up an item near you, like a pen or something, and just being mindful of the way that it feels. Holding a piece of ice and focusing on the way it feels and how it's melting. Going outside and just noticing the wind or noticing light. Those are mindfulness activities that ground you. Counting, so just going outside and starting counting leaves or counting clouds or counting birds or waves or whatever it is that can help bring you present. Describing a common task like how to brush your teeth or how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, that can help ground and center you. Just starting to list different positive things or choosing a category and listing things. With my little cousins, we play categories and we'll do like fruits and we all have to name different fruits, or we'll do vegetables and we have to name different vegetables. Those are all things that ground you and bring you to the present moment. Hand tracing, just going and tracing your hand. You don't even have to use like a pen, just putting it down and just tracing your hand can help ground you. Also doing like a figure 8, right? Drawing that on a piece of paper, that can help too. And there are some other things here that if you want to Google, it'll show you. Blowing bubbles, that's the other thing. And that's very fun too. We don't blow bubbles anymore, but it brings you present, you're using your breath, and you get to watch the bubbles afterwards too. Prevention does not have to be hard, but crisis sure is. And it's all about the little steps that are really big ones. Here are some great websites that you can check out. NAMIHawaii.org, that's where all of our like events and classes are. We're about to have a family and friends presentation. That's over two weeks and they're 2 hours each. And you can register on our website right now. We give confidential help, so you can call us on our warm line, or you can email us any questions and we can help too. Yes, these slides will be available afterwards. I'll send them as a PDF afterwards with a few other resources as well. Here's how to get help. Talk to someone, find support. We have a crisis text line. I know for me, I don't always like talking on the phone. For some reason, it makes me anxious and I prefer to text. It might be different for you. We have a teen line. There's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Also, most people don't know this, but if you think or suspect somebody is contemplating suicide, ask them about it. Are you thinking of hurting yourself? And I know a lot of people, most of the time, they're afraid to ask, but just asking takes away that charge and holds them accountable and makes them feel heard and seen and validated. And people are worried to ask because they're worried it'll make them more likely to do it, but it's actually the opposite. Just like for any physical illness like diabetes or asthma, a mental health condition needs treatment in order for you to get better. Some examples of treatment for mental health conditions are therapy such as cognitive, behavioral, or group, non-traditional therapy such as breath therapy, or guided imagery and medication. And it's important to know that you're not alone and we're all in this together. Everybody has felt anxious in their lives, and to take charge of your mental health. And I think that's it. I finished a little bit early, I see. I'll take any questions if anybody has. I know that was a lot of information, and I hope I didn't explode your brains.
Thank you, Anisa. That was such a good and hearty presentation with a lot of good information. So I hope people were able to take away some notes. And I personally like the EFT, the tapping. I think that's a really good technique to use. So thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge with us.
Oh, I forgot to show what's in my toolkit. Let me show now since I'm not presenting anymore. So my little cousin, after I showed me my toolkit and what was in here, she wanted to make me something to go in here. So she said, I love you so much. And so that's in here, can help me. I have a Palo Santo wood I like the smell of. These are like dark glasses. They're like indigo blue. If I have a headache or I want to see things differently, I'll put them on. I have a mirror, sometimes to combat my negative self-talk. an eye pillow for meditation, essential oil to smell. I have a mushroom coral that I really like the way it feels. I'll touch on if I need it. Something my best friend, we had a project we had to do together in high school that I keep that makes me feel good. And then also a little note somebody wrote that makes me feel good to read it too. So a journal with something to write on. You know, it's just something that if I need it, it's here. And just the fact that it's here just like takes pressure off of me. It's my safe space. So yeah, I encourage you to create your own, and also it helps you to open up the conversation to your friends, like about mental health. Like, let me show you what's in my toolkit. You know, I've enjoyed showing this to my little cousins. They love it. I enjoy sharing it with my friends too. It opens up the conversation.
Yep, it looks like we have one question. Can you show us the tapping again?
Okay, so the first one is the karate chop here. The next one is on your head, in between your eyes, under your nose, your chin, collarbone, and then under your armpit. And I'll send you the picture that I had on my slide. I have that as a resource along with the feelings wheel too. So I'll send that so you guys have it, so you can use it if you need it.
That's a really good technique. Looks like we have another question. You said not to say calm down. What would be a better response?
Ask open-ended questions instead. Don't try to give commands. Don't tell me to calm down. Instead, ask, you know, what are you feeling right now? Why are you feeling that way? Ask questions. Telling me to calm down, or I have this other slide on one of my other presentations. It's like everything you're not supposed to say to somebody in crisis, and it's like calm down or settle yourself, or I don't remember what else. I can send that via email too.
Yep, and it also depends on the person too, right? Like, and depending on what they're going through. Okay, let's see. Does tapping work with children too?
Oh yes, and again, you're not doing it only when they're feeling stressed out. It's not going to work when the child is having a tantrum. You know, teach it to them every day. Like, let's do some tapping now, and it's a fun little thing, so that they know how to use it already, so they can apply it when they're having a tantrum.
Good. Okay, I think that's it for questions. If there are any last minute questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box, or go ahead and put them in the Q&A box. But in the meantime, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Is there anything else you'd like to share, Anisa? That was so good. So is there anything else?
No, I think I'm good. I would encourage you all to join us for our walk. You can register at namiwalks.org/Hawaii. We have lots of fun stuff, and I'd love to see you guys as part of our community.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So thank you, Anisa. Thank you to Samaritan Counseling Center. Thank you to the Honolulu Grants and Aid Program. Thank you to First United Methodist Church of Honolulu. Thank you all for just bringing it together, and thank you everyone for coming to participate. All right.
Bye guys, enjoy your week. Happy Monday. Thanks for spending your Monday evening with me.
The hurricane threw it all off. I'm like, oh, it's Monday?
Thank you so much, Anisa and London. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. Happy to be here with you guys.
So I guess we can kind of hang out until everyone leaves.
I feel like my throat was so scratchy, and
I was wondering. I was like, oh, her throat.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, that was a long time for you to talk. So well done.
yeah, a lot of information for sure.
Do you have like a list of names of who all was there? I forgot to look at the attendee list.
Yep, I do. I can send it to you. Okay,
Okay.
hold on. Let me just remove everyone. Remove. Okay, there we go. All right, it's just us. Yeah, I can send it to you. It should be available like tomorrow, so I'll send it to you this week.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I think there were 20 people. Well, probably 16 since we had 4 panelists, but
Right.
it may be a little higher since people were coming in and out. So,
Well, and I know like Mark and Sandy were on one computer together, so I think that sometimes there might be more people than the actual number of people that were in.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much. That was the only question that I had, and really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing all of the personal nature of your story, Anisa. I think that really helps people to listen to what you have to say more, because it's like you're like, I've lived this and I understand it. And this is what works for me. You just have to figure out what works for you. So
Yeah, I just want exposure. I just think so many people think that mental health and treating it surrounds like talk therapy and medication, and not to stigmatize it, but there's just so much more. And I didn't even know that there was more. I just thought it was those 2 boxes. So just exposing people, that's my goal.
right. All right, well, I'm going to check out. So thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Kim.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
London, this is our last one. We did it. We made it to the end.
We did it. I'll give you a hug.
Okay.
Great job.
We're still recording.
Oh. Oops.